Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our event, Beyond Compliance, Accelerating Medical Device Innovation. Today's event is brought to us by Dassault Systems. Before we launch into the main presentation, I'd like to go over just a few brief housekeeping items. First, today's event will be about an hour long, and we will be recording it. We will email you a link to the archive recording so you can view the presentation again later if you'd like, or share it with a colleague. Also, this is an interactive event. Feel free to submit questions to our speakers using the chat box on your screen. If you would like to enlarge the slides, you may do so by dragging the corner of the box. This function allows you to make them larger or smaller. Also, please take a moment to visit our Resource Center. This box is located on your console. Here you can access a number of resources that you might find helpful. I'm hoping you can hear me okay, but if you need to make me louder or softer, you can adjust the volume using the media player tool within your console. Finally, at the end of this event, we will present you with a survey. Please take a few minutes to fill it out and let us know your thoughts on today's event. And with that, we're ready to begin. Over to you, Dan.
Thank you, Jenny, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what part of the globe you're watching us from. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us for our discussion on Beyond Compliance, Accelerating Medical Device Innovation. I'm Dan Atlas, and I'm president of Axendia, an analyst and strategy consulting firm providing trusted advice to life science and healthcare industry executives for over 10 years. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today the distinguished panel for our discussion. Arie Halpern is Life Sciences Industry Business Consultant Director at Dassault Systems. And joining us as well is Dave Hadfield, who's Senior Manager at Calypso's Medical Device Industry Practice. So let's talk a little bit about our agenda for today. We're going to talk initially about the shift in working in a global and outsourced environment. Then we'll talk about shifting from compliance to quality. We'll talk a little bit about UDI and the value of traceability beyond simply putting an ID on the product. And we'll wrap up by talking about how our company is dealing with personalization and customization. So let's talk about working in a global and outsourced market. According to our research, there are a number of different reasons why companies outsource compared to globalize. If you look on the left-hand side, you can see that the primary reasons for outsourcing are the need to access skills outside a company's core competencies, as well as to reduce costs of development and manufacturing. And if you look at the right-hand side, the primary reasons for going global are supporting emerging markets with locally produced products, as well as improving the rate of innovation. But what's interesting is if you look at the middle, at the green box, speed to market and improving product quality are constants, and they are key issues as to why companies are both outsourcing and globalizing. And this is not surprising. Globalization is a tremendous trend. And if you look at it simply from a demographic standpoint, if you look at the circle on Asia Pacific, more than half of human beings in the world currently live within this small circle. And what that does is it's really driving opportunities for medical device companies to provide their products and offerings within these growing and emerging markets. As part of this process, what many companies are doing is shifting to what we like to call a medical device platform approach. So instead of developing a product to meet a particular market, geographical, or a level of sophistication, what companies are doing is transitioning to global platforms where they are able to provide the appropriate level of sophistication and capabilities at the commensurate cost. And what's important to mention here is that it is not easy to be able to provide this, because if you're dealing with a top cardiologist in China or India or Brazil, their expectation is that they have the same features and capabilities as a top cardiologist in the United States or in France or in Germany. So what's important is to look at how do you provide the right level of capabilities depending on what market need you're trying to achieve. Another interesting trend around innovation in a global environment is the rate of new product introductions. If you look at the left-hand side, those three bars represent the rate of new product introduction for the developed economies. So 64% of those who responded said that they expect to see an increasing rate of new product introduction. But if you look at the bars on the right-hand side, for emerging markets or emerging economies, you can see that the rate of new product introduction is much higher for emerging markets than it is for the developed economies. So this really is changing the way that companies are doing business. So with that, I'd like to open it up to our panelists for their perspective. Dave, what are your thoughts on globalization and outsourcing, and what do you see as these drivers and opportunities that they provide?
Well, first of all, just as a reminder, I represent Calypso. So what we do is we help clients with their innovation process. We do everything from business planning, process design, and technology services. What I would say is that let me take these kind of one at a time. So on the outsourcing, we're seeing a couple of things that we believe are really driving our business, and that's a reflection, if you like, of what's going on in our clients' business. So number one is we're seeing definitely a shift in increased outsourcing to drive the innovation process. So with that, what we're really meaning is that we're bringing suppliers more directly in to leverage their expertise. At the same time, we're seeing kind of an interesting thing happening with the regulatory bodies such as FDA, where they're really looking closer at purchasing controls. And one area in particular is, and I think this has come a lot from some of the recalls, especially on the food side, that occurred in the last 5 years. But what we're seeing there is the need for suppliers or for companies to be tracking not only their immediate suppliers, but their suppliers' and the entire supply chain. That's something that's perhaps been neglected in the past from a quality compliance point of view. So the two of these things kind of coming together in terms of clients asking for technology and process redesign in these areas. And I've been in this industry for about 18 years now, and it's always been a topic, the idea of bringing suppliers into the product process. But I've really noticed in the last few years it's become more prevalent in terms of the kind of work we do. It's gone from being a later phase activity to an immediate first phase activity. So I think a lot of what that's about is the two things. It's the increase in need to drive innovation with suppliers and to respond to what the regulatory agencies are doing. So we're seeing requests, for example, where they want the supplier to be able to access product data very directly. So while companies are using tools like Dropbox and email still, and those certainly can be effective to an extent, we're seeing customers asking for more direct access to the data. So actually getting into the solutions that track innovation information and really being part of that. What's coming with that is security needs are very high because they only want the suppliers to see what they want them to see, not other data necessarily. And then what goes hand in hand with that then is also the desire to track quality information about that supplier, not only supplier's performance metrics, but then tracking information about the entire supply chain, as I mentioned. So we're seeing uptick in demand for things like tracking supplier corrective actions, supplier change requests, supplier issues, and so on. So that's how I've seen it materializing in kind of real life. So, and then on global manufacturing, as the second topic, we're definitely seeing clients moving more to what we might call a campus manufacturing model, where they are trying to consolidate manufacturing facilities down to fewer or focus certain ones in different areas. What we've seen is that, a lot of these companies have got very dispersed manufacturing globally, but really trying to take advantage of them in a more holistic way. So what we're seeing is putting in solutions that truly allow customers to design products anywhere and manufacture them anywhere, and having real flexibility, having a centralized set of information related to that, so that everyone can look at a product, for example, be able to manufacture to and it not be so dispersed. So those are the things I'm seeing, Dan.
Great. Thank you so much, Dave. Arya, how do you see medical device companies dealing with these challenges and benefiting from these opportunities?
Right. Thank you very much, and thank you, Dan. What we're seeing is, globalization is opening up entirely new market opportunities for medical device companies, and it also provides for a new set of challenges. Local pricing demands and, to some extent, different product requirements may be needed, for the respective local market, and again, that depends upon the product type. In my experience, in an effort to meet these new opportunities and challenges, many U.S.-based medical device companies have started to outsource their manufacturing to third-party subcontract manufacturers who have a wholly owned operations in Asia-Pacific region, India, and other geos, in an effort to develop products that are much more cost efficient relative to the demands of the local market. You see many multinational medical device companies have set up their own wholly owned operating divisions in major regional markets. In addition to manufacturing, they also provide for complete operating business units for marketing, R&D, regulatory, quality, commercialization to service. And this really provides them the ability to truly develop products that are meeting the local market needs at the local market costs. Now, this opens up other issues, and that has been, how do these multinational global companies operate and maintain product quality when sometimes you'd have R&D done in one area, manufacturing is done in another location. And so this has opened up the need for companies to look at implementing quality management strategies across the organization. So linking everybody to one common set of data where everybody could share in the same data, and basically breaking down your individual silos. And this is extremely importantly needed, given the increase look by the FDA upon quality, especially when they're doing audit inspections of overseas operations.
Great. Thank you, Arya. Dave, I want to go back to one of the points that you made around the supplier management aspect, and that's something that we're seeing as well from regulators around the world the need to manage the entire supply network, not just your primary supplier. So what kinds of processes and tools are you seeing companies implement in order to support this, and what's different about them?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dan. So first of all, we definitely still see a lot of and maybe even in some places an increased use of tools like Dropbox, I mentioned that earlier, or Google Drive, where it's a very easy place to track information and you can share it very quickly with a supplier. But what I would say we're seeing clients ask for is more precision than that. And I think it's in response to both the trends of the regulatory agencies looking for for better control of suppliers, essentially, as well as the need to bring suppliers into the innovation process. So what we are getting into, and it's really kind of cool and interesting, is we're used to managing things like the product BOM with solutions like the Inovia, the 3D experience platform from Dassault. We use that as one of our major go-to tools for clients. So we're used to tracking things like the bill of materials, all the specs related to the device master record, things like that. What our clients are wanting is to provide a portal into that system where the supplier can see very specific parts that maybe they're producing for them, very specific specs and quality plans. That's not necessarily anything that new. I would just say that there's been an uptick in that need. Before they've made do with going to the Dropboxes of the world or email or other solutions. Now they're really wanting direct access in. So they're training suppliers, they're taking the time to do that. What I think is even more interesting, though, is it's not just tracking the BOM, or the DMR, but it's also tracking things like supplier corrective actions and then linking that information together with the DMR. Or it could be tracking the risk assessment like the PFMEA or the DFMEA type data, and then having that tied in and having suppliers a part of that. So what the suppliers are able to do is get right in, act as if they're an employee, and they can really help drive that innovation, as well as we have a tighter control around the supplier quality, the supplier data. We're able to ask the supplier to put in their supply chain information. So it's very direct, it's very much data oriented, and it really helps the client have a better handle on all of it. So that's an exciting thing. I've really enjoyed working on some of those programs.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the technology today is mature enough to allow you to include your suppliers as part of your quality network, as an extension of your quality system, which is, ultimately what regulators want to see. And from a quality standpoint, that's what companies want to see as well. So let's change gears a little bit and, kind of building on that shift that we're seeing from regulators, from compliance to quality. I talked a few minutes ago about the fact that you want to include your suppliers as part of your quality system. And one of the things that's happening and that we're seeing, according to our research, is that compliance can, in fact, be an obstacle to quality. In our industry, and I have been involved in the life sciences industry, starting working for a medical device manufacturer for over 25 years. And in my experience, many organizations think of regulatory compliance and quality interchangeably. But if you look at it, the bottom line is that they are not the same. And in fact, in our opinion, our industry's hyper-focus on compliance is often an obstacle to improving product quality. If you look at other industries like automotive, aerospace and defense, and consumer electronics, they look at compliance as an expense. It's part of the cost of doing business. but they look at quality as an investment. For them, quality is not the quality department. It's not the inspection that needs to be done at the end of every step of the process, but instead, it's an investment in tightening process controls, in tightening process capabilities so that you can't help it but make high quality products, which minimize the need for fixing issues, field actions, and so on. One way I like to think about it is that compliance in our industry should be a side effect, a benign side effect of a well-designed and executed process, because compliance should be nothing more than documented evidence that you have done the right thing. And this is something that we are seeing FDA is focusing on over the last few years. This is a quote from former Commissioner Margaret Hamburg back in 2014. She talked about the fact that in recent years, FDA identified significant lapses in quality. And she goes on to say that high quality standards is part of the cost of doing business. The agency wants us to focus on improving product quality. And in 2011, they launched an initiative called the Case for Quality Initiative. And the objective by FDA, an industry regulator, is to drive higher medical device quality. And the three core components of Case for Quality are focus on product quality. The word that they use around compliance is a baseline. Compliance needs to be a baseline. FDA wants to identify and promote practices that result in higher quality devices. They want enhanced data transparency. They want to be able to get data from manufacturers and evaluate that data. And they want to incentivize innovation and higher quality, and they want stakeholder engagement. And actually, over the last 4 years, we have been participating in Case for Quality forums directly with the agency, where industry, agency, and other key stakeholders are actually discussing Case for Quality, next steps, what would be helpful for us to work together. Now, a couple of years ago, we had the opportunity to interview Steve Silverman, who at the time was the director of the Office of Compliance at CDRH, and really the leading figure behind Case for Quality. And what he talked about is that what FDA wants to do is that they've seen that organizations that are driving quality organization-wide tend to be more productive, have fewer complaints and investigations per batch, and often have a smaller quality unit, a smaller quality department with lower quality-related costs than their competitors. And really, what they're driving towards is for our quality systems as an industry to keep pace with the complexity of our devices. And how are they doing that? One of the words that we hear consistently from FDA is the word encourage. The regulators want to encourage industry to prioritize quality. They want to encourage boardrooms and pocketbooks because quality costs money. And this is a direct quote from Mr. Howard Scrambler, who's Deputy Commissioner of Global Regulatory Operations and Policy at the FDA, an agency-wide position. So there really is this transition from compliance to quality, and that is really going to drive the way that we respond to regulators and the way that we do business. So let me get our panelists' perspective on that. So Arya, with this increasing focus on product quality, what can medical device manufacturers do to support this shift to improve product quality?
Well, thank you very much. Well, what we could see today in today's environment, as you pointed out with regards to the FDA's focus on quality, quality has become really, a major focal point where you have to implement something what could be referred to as a harmonized quality management strategy. And that would provide companies with the ability to design anywhere, build anywhere, while maintaining compliance throughout the organization, both within a company and among operating divisions. And that is especially important, as we previously spoken about, with a lot of companies, multinational companies having different operating divisions in different parts of the world, where it goes back to the ability of a shift dynamics in the medical device companies of being able to design anywhere and build anywhere, but maintaining quality and compliance within the product and throughout the organization. We're seeing many companies will say that they have a fully robust quality management strategy in place. However, it is not always harmonized, and it tends to include manual paper-based products, which, as we know, is a very labor-intensive process, and it's not scalable, and it can have downstream consequences to the business. So even though it may have a short-term benefit in some cases, it has a near to long-term major consequences. For example, having a harmonized quality management strategy based on a single platform, you can see is especially important for medical devices that are involved in many merger M&A activities where there are multiple systems, various manual processes at different maturity levels, resulting in a snowball effect of issues and costs. And those you could effectively see in a large number of companies that are heavily involved in mergers and acquisitions. And how do you bring their systems in line to the system that you have? Quality has become a major point for the FDA given the rise in product recalls and adverse events. And this has been a keynote speak at several of the recent conferences, the AMD conference, the AdvaMed conference. And you could see that as a rise in the FDA's inspectors in looking at quality management systems upon inspecting at companies. So an effective quality management system built upon an engineering framework with links to downstream processes in manufacturing supply chain would provide for full visibility and traceability, and it could significantly improve product quality, reduce product recalls and adverse events while accelerating the product life cycle, while keeping innovation at the forefront.
Great. Thank you, Arya. Dave, can you share your perspective on the shift from compliance to quality, and what are you seeing?
Absolutely. Well, first off, I agree with everything Arya just said. I mean, look, the reality is everywhere I go in the life sciences industry, I see a very similar kind of problem, which is that there's companies that they have had this history of focus on compliance, and the way that they've solved it is they'll go out and they will solve kind of one section of the Part 820 or 1345 at a time. And this isn't a lot of the time, it's an effort to be compliant, right? Problem is that it does it at the great what we're looking for, which is quality. So for example, it's not uncommon in product life cycle, everything from quality, engineering, operations, supply chain. And it's a process to take information from one database to the next. And it's really, really hard to get that true quality. So they may be compliant in one area, but they still suffer from recalls. So it's like, what are we really trying to do here? And I think a lot of the problem is because of this data translation issue between these different process areas. So if you actually look at the slide that I have on the screen right now, this is really just illustrated at a very high level some of the processes that we go through when we develop a new product and put it on the market. And then the zigzag line is kind of the rate of change. So, and then you've got these sort of boxes around certain areas which roughly correlate to things like the design history file, the device master record, the risk file, the device history record, and so on. We're trying to capture all this information and provide it to an auditor, and it's all disparate. It's all over the place. If you look at how FDA has been positioning it for some time now, they have this model that they call the total product life cycle, and you can see that is should be integrated, and that's absolutely right on. Because the reality is that one thing feeds another. So a colleague and I, a couple of years ago, for example, we went in to a well-known client, a well-known medical device company, and studied their product lifecycle cradle to grave. And we actually uncovered 130 different processes that a product actually goes through, from early idea through to production and on market, and then all the way through to retirement. And what we found was that there was something in the neighborhood of about 800 data handling points that occurred. And they had, every time a complaint would come in, there would be 11 databases that complaint would go through before it was fully processed and resolved. So it was a very inefficient method of working. And so to me, this is the difference between thinking about it from a historical compliance point of view, and that's the situation you end up in, is you're just trying to solve one at a time. You really have to look at it much more holistically. And so what our clients are asking for is really to consolidate down to much fewer systems, to have processes that really talk to each other, and people thinking differently about that. So, it's pretty common now for clients to say, we really want to standardize on really three major systems: product lifecycle management, so a solution like Inovia from Dassault, the 3D experience platform; manufacturing execution, so a solution like Aprizo from Dassault would also fit there, but we see others as well; and then their ERP system like SAP or Oracle, versus having like these 2,000 databases. So that, to me, has been one way that companies are looking at trying to move out of this historical way of doing things to a much quality-focused approach. So the only other thing I would say here is that the biggest obstacle to what to me seems like a very obvious move is getting executives to really understand. And that's definitely been, in my career, the biggest challenge, because the reality is to explain some of this sometimes gets a little bit technical. Executives are busy people. It's hard to get the message across in a way that really resonates with them. So that's definitely an obstacle that I'm seeing. Just thought I'd throw that in there. But I really think that the companies that really take the time to understand the possibilities here would literally have the opportunity to annihilate competition, because there's a lot of opportunity for improvement.
Thanks, Dave. And I agree with you that in today's day and age, technology is not the issue. 25 years ago, the technology wasn't mature enough. Today, the issue is really change management, is organizational, and it's really getting buy-in from upper management all the way to the folks who are doing the work on a day-to-day basis. So let's transition to our next topic, which is the value of traceability. There's been a lot of talk, and obviously there's a number of deadlines that are here or coming up around UDI in the U.S. And a lot of companies have really been focusing primarily on putting an ID on the box, meeting the regulatory requirement again. And part of the value of traceability goes well above and beyond those immediate regulatory requirement needs into really helping manage the total product life cycle. So one of the things that we've been doing is looking at how the agency and how industry is or could be or should be looking at UDI. And in a recent report that the FDA released for comment around coordinated registry networks to bridge clinical care and research, the report talks about the need to have UDI incorporated into health information systems. Because what this would do is help track devices from the point of entry into the supply chain all the way through to billing and really provide significant transparency. One of the things a executive from a medical device manufacturer told me is once the product leaves our shipping dock, it magically makes it to the patient because currently there's very, very little visibility. The ability to use UDI would really help the patient and would really provide device follow-up and patient-centric outcomes. It really can enable a transition and a different way of doing things. And there are a number of forward-thinking companies, thought-leading companies that are actually implementing that. Another example here is what Dr. Shuren has said around the value of leveraging device identification in order to accelerate biomedical discoveries. Because FDA has launched an initiative called the Precision Medicine Initiative, where they are looking to help all of us leverage advances in genomics and emerging methods in order and analyze large data sets in order to accelerate biomedical discoveries while protecting patient privacy. So the goal of this initiative is to make data available about different product classes, different product categories, so that industry and other organizations can build virtual models to support this process. So, Arya, what do you see as the benefits of UDI to manufacturers, to healthcare providers, as well as patients?
Okay, well, thank you very much. Just as an opening point that was presented at the recent FDA UDI conference, just looking at the number of DI records registered. So as of June 2014, they had 75,000 DI records and 425 labeler accounts. If we go back and look at the initiative behind UDI as envisioned by the FDA, it was really several things. One was really upfront ensuring that medical devices are safe and effective. That was their number one objective, priority. Provide a means whereby unsafe and ineffective medical devices may be reported to the FDA and removed from commercialization in a timely manner, because that's been a major problem that has been plaguing the industry. You would have often hospitals would be writing down notes about a problem with a product. Sometimes they replace them. They misplace the notes. They never get reported to the manufacturer. They don't get reported to the FDA. They're lost. Then it opens up a whole snowball effect as to why the manufacturer didn't know that there was a problem with the product or an adverse event. Faster notification to registered owners of the devices, what they need to know, the dissemination of information, and what corrective actions to follow. And that's especially important these days, given to patients that have a large number of implant devices, both active implants and passive implants, as well as on-body devices, which is a whole new paradigm shift that is taking on in healthcare. So if there is an issue with a product, how do you disseminate that information quickly to the registered owner and user of the product such that they can avert any potential patient complications? And then providing a foundation for global secure distribution chains and helping to address counterfeiting and diversions and prepare for medical emergencies. which is another problem that's been impacting medical device companies in more third regions in the world. If we look at the benefits for manufacturers and distributors, it really allows both manufacturers and distributors, as well as healthcare facilities, to more effectively manage medical device recalls through a standard identifier, more effectively manage their inventory of products reaching expiration dates, which is a major problem that in some cases may have severe patient implications, provides for quicker sales pathway traceability from the manufacturer to the distributor, to the hospital or to the physician's office, and then to the patient, because traceability is another major issue that affects medical device companies in the selling of their products. Again, who did they sell their products to? If they went through a distributor, where did it go from the distributor? Improving patient safety through faster notification and faster notification of adverse events to the FDA. If we take UDI one step beyond, and we more or less look at this from a holistic perspective, go beyond the DI to the good ID. That's all the FDA mandates. However, if you look at the holistic approach perspective of what Jay Crawley was trying to convey at the FDA in terms of improving patient safety, as a medical device manufacturer, you have one of the values that you could see of UDI is when you have an incoming complaint. So assuming the incoming complaint has a UDI code that's associated with that complaint, you're now able to be more efficient in being able to trace the entire complaint from a complaint, whether it goes to a CAPA, being able to link that to your original UDI record, tie that to whatever was your device dossier submission that is associated with that. But then in terms of expediting information to the end users, if you take a look at the production identifier, which really resides in the manufacturing on an MES side, you have the ability for the first time where you can link the PI information that you're getting off the UDI to your MES system, be able to trace that down to which manufacturing operation manufactured the product, what's the lot and batch numbers, what's the serial numbers associated with that, and then through your sales registry, being able to quickly identify who are the registered owners of those products with serial numbers that then allow you to be much more effective in dissemination of information to the registered end users in a timely manner. Essentially, UDI becomes your new master data in a way, because everything associated with the product ties into the UDI. For distributors, it provides for full traceability from incoming inspection into distributors' warehouses, to hospitals, to physician offices, and really helps manage product returns, whether they're due to expiration dates or they were due to the defective products. The benefits for the healthcare providers is it really provides for a structured process for enhanced capturing of product events into the patient electronic healthcare records, which is very similar to the electronic drug administration systems that have been out into the market in the past 10 years to address wrong drug infusions. So such data that is being scanned now, and it's a process that is being looked into by the healthcare industry, is being able to link through barcode scanning. You can scan the patient's ID, you can scan the clinician's ID, you can scan the device UDI, and then you're able to write a description of the observed event, and you can link all this into electronic healthcare records. So the value from that is that now you have everything in one central depository of what was the event, what was associated with it, what's the patient, who observed that, what was written. Now the hospital is in the position to much more quickly and efficiently disseminate that information to the manufacturer, and they can disseminate that information to the FDA, to the good ID, and in the event of an adverse event, be able to more efficiently notify that to the FDA. For healthcare professionals and patients, it easily provides an accessible source of device information for patients and clinicians, given that the Good ID Customer Portal has been recently opened and provides that ability to scan the databases for any specific events and notifications relating to their devices. It provides patients with implantable and on-body devices with a peace of mind that should there be a device alert notification, they can be quickly located and notified through their physician, hospital, or manufacturer, or the FDA.
Great. Thank you, Arya. So let's look at this transition where we're dealing now more and more as an industry with personalized and customized devices. So there are a number of trends that are impacting this solutions or medicine or devices for the one. You know, we hear a lot about intelligence and big data and analytics and the capabilities that those would provide us. There's another major trend in our industry around adding additive manufacturing and 3D printing and being able to create a device that is customized to a particular patient. We hear a lot about virtual human models and digital twins and simulation technologies, and also the Internet of Medical Things and these connected healthcare devices that really can help us transition from the current approach of mass production to a future approach of mass customization, where each device, where appropriate, can be tailored and or customized to a particular individuals. So I'd like to get our panelists' perspective on that. And, you know, maybe I can start with you, Arya. What are some of the technology platforms that companies can use to support the development of personalized and customized devices?
Yeah, thank you. Well, from my experiences, enterprise systems have demonstrated to be really an invaluable tool in providing a development-based business platform based upon a single source of data, which provides for real-time access to a common set of information. And this is important because it provides for cross-collaboration amongst the departments, both internal and external of the company, and accelerating the product development lifecycle process from voice of the customer requirements through the complete product development lifecycle to commercialization to end of life, delivering upon quality-based innovation. When you combine the single source with a single unified change management system across the company, coupled with an enterprise quality management strategy, this ensures that the latest data is used throughout the development lifecycle process, and that the data can be easily accessible from your design history file to your MBOMs, engineering BOMs, to your device master records, to your device history record, thereby accelerating the delivery in the next wave of personalized and customized quality-based medical devices. This forms really your base innovative platform from which you then build upon these products. If you look at the advances in 3D MRI imaging systems, 3D modeling CAD, 3D virtual environments, and 3D printing, you know, we're really now entering into a new convergence frontier where technology is being merged to the specific needs of the patient, allowing for a unique patient experience. For example, recently in the last 2 to 3 years, you've seen the emergence of exoskeleton technology, which is being used to allow walking impaired people who have been wheelchair ridden with the ability to finally being able to walk and be self-reliant. 3D printing of medical devices has even opened up the capability for customization in a variety of applications in the medical device field, for example, dental implants, hearing aids, orthopedic implants. We've actually also seen recently the application of 3D printing of artificial hands, allowing for the rapid development of artificial hands for children who are born with partially developed hands where their fingers are not fully developed and thus are unable to grasp items. So artificial hands provide children with the ability to grasp and hold on items that were not doable before. But more importantly, 3D printing provides companies with the ability to create new hands to match the child's age in the span of 1 to 2 days for a cost of a few $100s. And recently, to open up in a whole new area, we're seeing 3D printed custom ordered drugs. This past August 2015, the FDA for the first time approved the first 3D printed drug, Soustraitance, manufactured by Ohio-based Approche Pharmaceuticals for treating seizures in certain children and adults with epilepsy, along with other drugs, basically ushering in a new era where drugs can be custom ordered based upon specific patient needs rather than one product fits all. We're also seeing on the development for on-body devices, such as insulin pumps and on-body sensors, as the mobile health space is one of the rapid growth industries in the healthcare industry, of combining 3D CAD with 3D realistic environment simulation. You're really now able for the first time to virtually see how this on-body device will look like on a person and be able to virtually assess form, fit into a certain perspective function, thereby accelerating design and time to market. With custom implant devices, when you combine computational simulation modeling together with 3D MRI, 3D CAD, and 3D printing, research institutes are exploring the ability to design custom fit implant devices such as heart valves and orthopedic implants. We're also seeing for the first time how simulation testing for the first time can reduce the number of animal studies required and associated product redesign costs and times, increasing product quality, reducing product recalls, and improving patient safety. There is an ongoing research that one should mention, both within the FDA and the International Consortium, to assess if simulation can be used to help reduce the number of clinical trials needed, resulting in accelerating time to market. And one last thing one last thing I thought I would mention about enterprise systems today are really being used very heavily in the wireless mobile health space in terms of being able to link patients' data to the electronic healthcare record. You're seeing that in the remote monitoring and remote telehealth, which is one of the fastest growing market segments due to the ability to reduce cost of care. And then turn it back over to you, Dan.
Thank you, Arya. Dave, what's your take on this shift from mass production to mass customization?
Well, I can really talk to what we're seeing or have seen in our business in the last few years. So being in the innovation space, if you like, helping clients with capabilities to support that, what we've seen is definitely an uptick in personalized devices, such as personalized orthopedics, personalized catheters, things like that. So that's forced us to change what we're necessarily used to with mass-produced devices, and it's introducing new process areas that we are having to respond to and automate. So we're seeing definitely the desire for clients to be able to take the input from the 3D scan from the doctor, very quickly turn that into a custom device, maybe it's 3D printed, and return that to the physician for implantation. So that's something that we're seeing, and we're helping clients with the automation of that. I think there's a couple of other very interesting trends as well around the personal health space that we're seeing. So we don't only operate in the life sciences. We have practices very strong practice in retail and in CPG and in high tech. And I think that we're seeing companies take an interest in wellness care as much as they, going away from some extent, sick care. So what we're seeing is companies entering the health space. We probably all know on this call that Google and Apple have met with FDA in the last year. That's a really fascinating, sort of scary kind of thing that they're getting into the wearables and things like that. So what I expect to see is convergence between industries or industry partnerships to produce really cool, innovative, personalized devices that are as much about keeping you healthy in the first place as opposed to dealing with sickness. And I think one other thing that ties into that we're also starting to see, people are waking up to the possibility of using IoT, Internet of Things, so smart internet devices directly in the product innovation lifecycle. So it could be getting data directly from the customer, the end user of the device, whether that's a wellness care device like a running device, or it could be a medical device, all feeding data directly back into the product lifecycle. And then also, gaining information from manufacturing as we're producing those devices and providing that data more real time to the innovators that design those products so they can see how they're performing. So we used to look at complaint trends and still do, of course. Now we're starting to think about things like actual usage, live usage trends, where the end customers agree to provide that data. So I think it's a really fascinating time. There's all kinds of cool stuff coming together. What I imagine in 5 to 10 years is we'll really see a lot more shift to personalized wellness devices, customized medical devices. It's going to the doctor is going to be a very different experience 10 to 15 years from now. It's going to be more about you than our mass understanding of medical studies or whatever. So it's going to be much more of a personalized experience about keeping you healthy, and if you do get sick, it's going to be about solving it for you personally. So those are the things we're seeing in our business. They're very real and very exciting.
Excellent. I think in the interest of time, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for joining me today. Thanks to Aria and Dave. And for the folks in the audience, if you have any questions or you would like to reach out to each one of us individually, our email addresses are included here. Once again, I want to take this opportunity to thank you both and thank Dassault Systems and Calypso for making this webcast possible. Thank you very much and have a great day.